That's what I like to see. Pockets getting hit hard, bro. Hard. Because somebody need to hold these players accountable for the stupidity they have.
To the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now, here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. Dijonai, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it. What the hell?
It states here, Reebok is reportedly dropping their endorsement for Dijonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham.
Dijonai Carrington might be losing the one thing that was actually going her way this season, and from the sound of it, she only has herself to blame for how fast it's slipping away. This isn't some slow, quiet fade either. This is the kind of collapse that happens in real time, in front of cameras, in front of millions of people scrolling their phones. And it all traces back to a handful of decisions she made on the court over the course of a single.
Reebok is reportedly dropping their endorsement for Dijonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham. Okay, and a bunch of people are saying this is true. You know, I don't know, but here it says, perfect. Good job, Reebok, for having a morals clause in her contract and enforcing it by pulling it. Carrington is a bully that the league apparently is protecting. Wake up, WNBA, before someone really gets hurt. You'll get sued because we Americans won't stand for this abuse. Do you?
Word is spreading that Reebok is quietly looking at cutting ties with Carrington, and the name being floated to replace her on the roster of endorsed athletes is not some random rookie nobody's heard of. It's Sophie Cunningham. Yes, that's Sophie Cunningham, the same player Carrington has spent the last week fouling like she owes her money. If this is actually true, it's one of the wildest turnarounds you'll see in sports marketing this year. Because a few months ago, nobody would have guessed these two names would end up tangled together in a shoe deal story. Let alone on opposite ends of a controversy that's now threatening one of their careers financially.
That is just a hard hit. That's definitely going to be upgraded, I think, to a flagrant 2, Ryan.
I think that is going to be a flagrant 2. There is wind up, there is follow through, there's potential for injury.
Without
Sophie Cunningham in a vulnerable position in the air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question.
WNBA player Dijonai Carrington of the Chicago Sky was ejected after a flagrant 2 foul on Sophie Cunningham in last night's WNBA game. As you saw from the video, Sophie was going for a fast break layup when Dijonai decided it would be a good idea to go after her head instead of the ball. So that obviously prompted the flagrant 2. The referees take a look at it and she was ejected, and a lot of people are calling for her suspension.
That's how we got here. Reebok signed Carrington a while back, hoping she'd be one of the faces of their basketball line. Someone with personality. Someone people would want to root for both on the floor and off it. That's the whole point of an endorsement deal. A brand isn't just paying for your jump shot. They're paying for the way you make people feel when they see your name on a box in a store or an ad running before their favorite video. And lately, the way Dijonai Carrington has made people feel has not exactly been warm and fuzzy. It's been the opposite, and brands notice that shift a lot faster than most fans.
The timeline of everything, and because of, if you want to call it the jealous nature, the legitimate hatred for somebody because of what they believe in and because of what they look like and because of how popular they are, I could say it's a targeted attack.
Yeah, oh, clearly. I mean, I think most people believe that.
But then on top of that, you know, it's not only white privilege she puts out there. She puts the next, in our next post, she puts the game date of the next time they're going to play the Fever. Yep. I mean, that's almost like, it feels.
In the span of one single week, Carrington picked up 3 separate fouls that had people rewinding the footage just to make sure they saw it right the first time. Not hustle fouls. Not the kind of contact you shrug off as two competitors fighting for position in a physical league. These were the kind of plays that make analysts go quiet for a second before they even know what to say about it on air. And every single one of them somehow found its way to Sophie Cunningham, which is exactly the kind of coincidence that stops looking like a coincidence after the 3rd time it happens in the same handful of days.
with another signature move yet again versus the Valks tonight.
And then she put both hands up.
Damn.
Right.
What is she doing with her left hand? Look at her left hand. Just let me just poke you in the eye real quick.
She's swinging hard.
What is this goofball, uncoordinated individual doing, poking somebody in the eye with their hands up? Hands up. Dude, this is so bad. Hands up. Swipe for the ball with our right hand while poking the player in the eye with the left hand. You really can't make this stuff.
Look, physical basketball isn't new. Nobody's asking players to go soft out there, and toughness has always been part of what makes this league entertaining to watch. But there's a difference between playing tough and playing reckless, and a lot of people watching these clips felt like Carrington crossed that line more than once in a matter of days. That's not a one-off bad night you brush off after sleeping on it. That's a pattern, and patterns are exactly the kind of thing a brand's marketing team pays very close attention to when they're deciding who gets to keep wearing the logo on national television.
Dijonai decided to post from the locker room on Threads saying white privilege. Cunningham herself admitted that she's been ejected for the exact same thing before and deserved it. Yet that card got played in seconds before the ejection even cooled off. Now, a sitting state attorney general just told an entire professional league that he will treat their hardest fouls as criminal assault. Florida doesn't even have a WNBA team. This is literally a warning, not a jurisdiction, people. You fucking clotheslined her. And I would be saying this about anybody, regardless of what the fuck they look like. Literally, right when the WNBA was really starting to become...
Then came the interview that turned a basketball story into something a lot bigger than basketball. After getting called out for the contact, Carrington didn't exactly de-escalate things the way most players in her position would. Instead of just owning the play and moving on, she brought up the phrase white privilege while talking about Cunningham, which took a conversation about a physical foul and turned it into a conversation about intent, motive, and everything else that comes bundled up in a phrase that heavy once it's said out loud in front of reporters. Whether you think that comment was fair or not, whether you think it was even remotely connected to what actually happened on the floor, one thing is true. It changed the entire tone of the story overnight, and not in a way that helped her case with anyone watching from the outside.
She's going to do. She didn't see the clip. You know what, Dijonai, she is a hell of a player. She's a great defender, and so she coached her for I don't know how many years up in Connecticut. So give her flowers, and she didn't see it, and that's okay. Me and Steph are great. Steph is great with all of us, and so it's really the outside noise that's trying to distract us.
Through all of it, Cunningham hasn't really thrown a single punch back, at least not with her words. She's mostly just kept playing, kept showing up, and let her performance answer for her, the same way she's handled plenty of noise around her this season already. That contrast is exactly why so many people online started asking why one player gets painted as the difficult one and the other gets praised for staying composed, even when she's the one absorbing the hits night after night. It's a simple visual, really. One player getting hit and staying quiet. One player throwing the hits and getting loud about it afterward. People notice which one of those looks better on camera, and brands notice it even faster than the fans do. And social media did not sit quiet on any of this. One tweet that picked up serious traction read, Reebok still has DJ Carrington on an endorsement deal after she cheap shots Sophie Cunningham and screams white privilege. That's not an athlete. That's a liability. Drop her or America drops you. That's not a soft take. That's somebody drawing a hard line and daring the brand to pick a side and judging by the replies underneath it. A lot of people agreed with every single word. Quote tweets started piling up with people sharing their own receipts from earlier games, old clips resurfacing, screenshots of past comments, all of it getting stitched together into one bigger case against her staying on the brand's roster at all.
Carrington is on the brink of being dropped by Reebok, and let me tell you what, man, this is not good for Dijonai Carrington at all. And then you have this going on as well. Thousands demand Reebok drop Dijonai Carrington after brutal attack on Sophie Cunningham. Hold her accountable. I firmly support Reebok dropping Dijonai Carrington's endorsement. Okay, so a lot of people are getting behind this thing. And Dijonai Carrington is on the brink of potentially losing millions of dollars with sponsorship. Here it says breaking thousands of people are calling Reebok to drop. This thing is everywhere, man. This thing is everywhere.
It's the kind of headline brands dread seeing attached to their name. Because it's not just fans venting for a day and forgetting about it by the weekend. It's turning into an actual movement, with people openly saying they'll stop buying Reebok products entirely as long as Carrington stays on the roster of endorsed athletes. When customers start threatening a boycott over one athlete's behavior. That's the moment a marketing department stops debating internally and starts scrambling for a solution. Because lost sales are a lot harder to explain away in a quarterly earnings call than a bad foul is to explain away on a highlight show.
That she never once claimed that the assessment of the foul was white privilege. That was your assumption. All I could say is, if you are posting during the game, is my understanding, it doesn't take a genius to connect the two together. Sure, it's very vague. And that's kind of the criticism of this whole thing. It's a vague critique that has no relevance to what transpired. There was nothing about what transpired that had anything to do with white privilege. It's really that simple, right? I don't got nothing personally against her. I hate that her game doesn't have her in the spotlight right now because she had been playing pretty well. She had the Sky on a 3-1 record with her returning. This is just an L across the board for her, and she just continues to double down on it. And I like what Acho said. The rarest W for him. He said, the burden is on you for being clear, direct, and easy to understand. She left so much room for people to take that a million different directions. People that were supporting her were taking it a million different directions than she probably meant. And her inability to just chalk it up to, hey, I was frustrated, I had a lot of things on my mind, and I posted that, I shouldn't have made that post. That would have gotten her a lot more grace. But doubling down on this nonsense, I don't get it. I don't get why people support it.
So Carrington tried to walk some of it back. There was a statement, some softer comments to reporters, an attempt to reframe the whole thing as heated competition rather than anything personal or intentional. On paper, that's usually the right move. Own it, soften it, move forward, and let the next good performance do the talking instead. But the backtrack hasn't landed the way these things normally do, because it came after 3 fouls and 1 loaded comment. Not after just one bad moment people could easily forgive and forget within a day or two. Once a pattern is already out there in slow motion clips being shared everywhere across every platform, a single apology doesn't really undo 3 separate incidents stacked on top of each other in the exact.
You suggested we should think critically about a statement white privilege when you at the Indiana Fever. You didn't give us much to think critically about. We, the interpreter, now have to try to figure out what exactly were you talking about. Well, common sense would deduce that you were talking about fouling a white individual and getting ejected for fouling that white individual. Now, as I said on social media, and I will say in real life, if that is not what you were talking about implying, then that's on me. I will stand down and I will stand corrected. But the last thing I must again reiterate, so many people have asked you, amongst others, well, then what are you talking about? We still have yet to get a response. All that Dijonai, you have told us is, hey, I wasn't talking about the foul. Well then, what were you talking about? I refuse to believe, on behalf of everybody that is confused, we're not all idiots and you are the one genius in the room. That's just not the case. So I say this with all respect. I respect your intelligence. I respect your response. And you currently on the court hooping. So respect to you. But there's still a lot of errors in your thought.
And that's really the core problem here from a purely business standpoint, separate from anything about who was right or wrong on the actual plays themselves. Analysts breaking this down have pointed out that endorsement deals live and die on one simple question. Is this person somebody the average customer wants to see representing a brand they buy from at the store? Skill on the court gets you the offer in the first place. Likability and public trust are what keep the deal alive once the cameras are rolling for a different reason than a highlight reel. Right now, based on how this week has gone, that trust is looking shaky. And shaky trust is exactly the kind of thing that makes a brand start quietly shopping around for a replacement while the current deal is technically still active on paper. Which brings us back to Sophie Cunningham, and why her name specifically is the one getting floated as a replacement instead of anybody else on the roster. Cunningham already has her own signature situation brewing with Adidas, and normally that alone would make her an unlikely candidate for a Reebok deal, since athletes usually don't juggle competing shoe brands at the same time in this kind of sport. But according to what's being reported, Reebok is allegedly willing to get creative here, structuring something that would let Cunningham keep her Adidas shoe while still bringing her into the Reebok family in some capacity. Almost like a peace offering aimed directly at fans who have been asking the brand to make a change for a while now. It's an unusual setup, and it tells you how badly Reebok wants to fix its image right now, quickly and publicly, before more customers walk away for good.
Calling Reebok the drop. This thing is everywhere, man. This thing is everywhere. So Dijonai Carrington, man, on the brink of losing it all, and you just did too much. I mean, a flagrant foul was enough, but the whole white privilege thing, nasty and uncomfortable.
About how strange that actually is for a second. A brand is reportedly willing to share space with a competitor's shoe just to bring in an athlete who represents the opposite of what's currently causing them trouble. That's not a small gesture you make casually. That's a brand admitting, without saying it directly in any press release, that keeping their current athlete the way things stand right now is doing more damage than losing some exclusivity ever would. When a company starts bending its own usual rules just to win back customer trust, that generally means the internal numbers are a lot worse than anything they're willing to say publicly to reporters or shareholders. And for Carrington, the timing could not be worse. She wasn't just risking one small deal here. Endorsement contracts tend to have language built in for exactly this kind of situation, clauses about conduct, about public image, about anything that could embarrass the brand attached to your name in a very public way. 3 rash fouls and a heated comment about a fellow player, all inside one single week, is precisely the kind of stretch those clauses were written for in the first place. It's not just Reebok that's watching this unfold either. Other brands pay attention to these stories too, because nobody wants to be the next company explaining to angry customers why their athlete is still cashing checks after a week like this one. And that kind of ripple effect can quietly cost an athlete more than just one contract.
NBA is the gift that keeps on giving. The latest is a clothesline foul on Sophie Cunningham by Dijonai Carrington, the woman that went on an incredibly racist rant against cab driver, and of course knocked the hell out of Caitlin Clark from behind her rookie year. But that's okay. I'm not mad at that kind of basketball. That's all good. But the problem is after. It was white privilege. I just want you to think logically, and please comment on this. White girl goes to the basket. African-American woman knocks her on her ass, clothesliner, knocks her down, upgraded to a flagrant 2. Black girl kicked out, and it's all because of white privilege. Let me know what you think. I think it's typical WNBA stupidity, and I love it.
What makes it sting even more is that none of this had to happen the way it did. Fouls happen in basketball every single night, and most of them are forgotten by the next morning without a second thought. If Carrington had picked up one hard foul and handled the aftermath with composure, none of this turns into a story big enough to threaten a shoe deal worth real money. It's the combination that did it. 3 incidents back to back, a loaded comment thrown into the middle of it at the worst possible moment, and then a backtrack that came a little too late to change the narrative that had already formed online days earlier. Once fans decide someone is unpromotable, walking that label back takes a lot more than one polite statement handed to reporters after the damage is already done. There's also the timing problem nobody seems to be talking about enough. This all happened during a stretch of the season when cameras are on every single game, when highlight accounts are actively hunting for controversial moments to clip and repost within minutes. A questionable foul that might have slipped by quietly during a random midseason game in an empty arena instead got amplified across every platform almost instantly, replayed from 6 different angles by 6 different accounts before the night was even over. That kind of visibility cuts both ways. It can turn a good moment into a viral highlight overnight, but it can just as easily turn one bad decision into a week-long news cycle that a brand simply cannot afford to attach itself to anymore.
I think that there's so much good going on in the WNBA. I think that basketball is being played at the highest level it's ever been. I think our team in specific, we are breaking history right now with the amount of points that we're scoring on back-to-back games. I think the Minnesota game, there's just so much distraction. I think the WNBA media, all we ever do is cover everything except basketball. And it's like what are we doing? There's so much, like, you can talk about other things. I think those are great stories. I think it shows fans, who people are outside of the court. But I also think we got to keep the main thing. And I think when it comes to the Minnesota game, I think there was so much distraction. But like the matchup between Miles and Kelsey was phenomenal. Our team, that game in particular was a great game. And so I think that there's a lot to be said, and I'm going to let people just do the speaking for themselves. But for me, I want to get
Cunningham keeps doing what she's been doing all season, playing through pressure, absorbing contact without complaint, and letting her game do most of the talking while everyone around her seems to be arguing about everything except basketball itself. Whether or not this Reebok situation actually plays out the way the rumors suggest, the optics right now genuinely favor her side of the story, and that's usually exactly the kind of moment brands are looking for when they're deciding who deserves the spotlight next season and beyond. So where does this leave DJ Carrington? Right now, in limbo, watching a deal she probably assumed was safe suddenly turn into a very real question mark, all because of decisions made in the heat of a handful of games over one rough week. Whether Reebok actually follows through on cutting ties, or whether this cools down the way plenty of sports stories eventually do once the news cycle moves on to something else entirely. One thing seems pretty clear from where things stand today. The character an athlete shows in these smaller heated moments matters just as much to brands as anything that shows up on the stat sheet at the end of the season, and right now a lot of people don't like what they've seen from her this past week at all.